What's up, guys, and welcome back to Unqualified Critics. I want to thank you as viewers. You guys have given some really thoughtful and interesting comments. Sometimes you guys bring up stuff I hadn't thought of. So just big shout out to you guys. Really do appreciate your comments, and I try to read as many of them as I can, almost all of them. And yeah, keep it going. So I wanted to give you an update today on Arcade1up Pinball. Mel Kirk, and high up senior employee at Zen Studios, that's the company doing the software for the Arcade1up Pinball. He seems to be the only person on the planet who actually has one of these machines in his possession. And thankfully for all of us, he spent a lot of time giving us all footage. Now, I would argue the footage isn't perfect. It's kind of at a weird angle, but if he did any better, then you wouldn't need us YouTube folks to buy these products and review it, and he'd be taking our job. They took your job. So I guess for that, I'm thankful. But he has given us a lot of good footage, and specifically this footage of the Wolverine table on the Marvel cabinet. Now, he only has the Marvel cabinet, so he's not showing us, say, the Attack from Mars, which will work a little differently, and that it will have simulation physics, not just these arcadey physics. So that's still to be determined, but I am thankful for the footage here that we're getting. And I'll tell you, this Wolverine footage is interesting because you can see Mel, as he's playing this game, you can see him come in and really nudge the cabinet, and you can see just how smooth that nudge, that physical nudge, translates into the ball moving on the table. It's like he's playing a real pinball. If that feels as smooth as it looks on camera, then man, that's going to make this experience pretty slick. That was always something I wondered about. Any kind of input latency. You know, when you play certain games, you can have a little bit of lag between when you do an action and when it manifests on screen. And in fact, there always is some input latency, but in most gaming devices, it's so small, as humans, we can't detect it. You got to get out your high frame rate camera to sort it out. Well, because they're dealing with physical motions that are then going to translate into the software, you know, how optimized is that software to register all that stuff? They've talked before about how when they made this software, that was a big challenge for them, especially for the plunger. Of course, for the plunger, it doesn't need to be as exact, but when you're pushing the cabinet, you really need that to register right away, or your brain's going to know this is bogus and it's going to pull you out of it. I suspect when the people who've played this talk about how immersive it is, I suspect that's one of the reasons, because you do have that one-to-one physical interaction, which is seemingly pretty nice. However, this doesn't answer every question. The screen does look a little small here, and the camera isn't exactly maybe where you'd be standing looking straight on, and it may be better in person than it is on camera. A lot of times picking up these LCD monitor images on a simple phone camera, it's kind of hard to do, and it's kind of hard to do it justice. So I'm by no means writing this off. I'm simply telling you that when I looked at this footage, my hope was to come away definitively, one way or the other. Is this screen too small to really keep track of the action with your eyes? Or is it good enough? Is it the right size? We know it could be better, no question. If this was a 30-inch monitor, this for sure would be better. And it's not. But is 24 inches good enough to make this a good experience to want to buy it? Now, we all have a really clear option. We could get the AtGames Legends Pinball, which was just redesigned to look more like a real pinball machine, and it has a lot of benefits that the Arcade1up never will have. Or we could get the Arcade1up cabinet. You save $50, you get less specs, but you maybe get a more authentic experience. What do I mean by a more authentic experience? Well, you get maybe a more optimized software, so it's one-to-one when you push on the cab. Now, the Legends Pinball might have that too. I haven't had a chance to test it yet. I just haven't seen it in action, and I've now seen this in action. I know it looks pretty smooth. The other thing is you get a dedicated digital media display, DMD, in the back box. Now, yes, the AtGames has a large monitor in the back box. I'm giving them a lot of credit for that. They're spending more money giving us larger monitors and driving those monitors at 1080p 60 frames a second. But the monitor in the Legends Pinball and the back box really does two things. It's going to show you back box art, and it's also going to show you a DMD. And that's okay. That might work great. But here you do get a dedicated DMD monitor. You don't get dynamic imagery for the back box. You get set imagery, which is a little lame if you're playing a pinball game that's not on, like, let's say you buy Attack from Mars, but you play one of the other tables, like Junkyard or whatever. I don't remember offhand what all was included there, but there are 9 other tables aside from Attack from Mars. While the artwork isn't going to be dynamic, it's still going to show Attack from Mars. But you do get that dedicated DMD, and that is that classic pinball experience. You look up at a small screen, kind of looks like a dot matrix type view, and you look down at your proper gaming playfield. But if this 24-inch monitor is too small to be able to truly engage with this game, then it really doesn't matter. The other thing is the artwork in the cabinet going to look and feel really polished? We know At Games just stepped up their hardware game. We also know that both companies have been really late to define their final hardware spec. Even now, what we're looking at, this guy from Zen Studios, he doesn't even have the final spec. This was made back in July. Nobody's seen the final spec. We don't know if it's been finalized or not. And I simply mean the look and feel of the cabinet. I think we know the monitor and all that stuff is finalized, but we don't know the cabinet. The one question I've had is the metal bezel that runs around the front by the apron. It's not completely flush with the metal bezel that runs along the side of the cabinet. It looks like you could kind of catch your fingernail or even tip your finger under it. It looks kind of sloppy. Now, maybe that's just because this is pre-release hardware. You can't see it in this footage, but in previous footage Mel has shown, you can see it pretty clearly. You can even see it from the old, I think, CES footage from early in 2020, back when the world was so different than it is now. Feels like 10 years ago. Anyway, we don't need to rehash all those points, but I just want to give you the latest, my view of this. I think it looks good. There are reasons to be excited, but there are reasons to wonder, is the monitor going to be large enough for you? I know I've got some commenters feel it is and some that isn't. I think it's just going to be subjective based on, frankly, how good our eyesight is. And we're not getting any younger, boys. Every year I get older, I know my eyesight gets a little bit worse. But I am hopeful for this. And I do like what I see in this footage. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I'll talk to you later. Hit that like button if you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you soon. Hey, consider hitting that join button to support the channel, and thanks so much for watching.